The elevator in Grant's building is too slow. I take the stairs. 22 flights. My lungs are burning by the time I hit the lobby. The doorman, a guy Grant always tips heavily, looks up as I burst through the fire escape door. He sees my face, the panic. He starts to reach for his phone, probably to call Grant, but I am out the revolving door before he can stand. The November night in Chicago hits me like a solid wall of ice. The rain is not just falling, it is attacking, thick as wire. Driven by a wind that screams off the lake, I am Maya Hart. I am the assistant manager at a quiet independent bookstore on the north side. I am the woman who alphabetizes poetry and recommends biographies. Tonight, I am just a target. I left Grant Whitaker's penthouse apartment with nothing but my torn tote bag. The strap cuts into my shoulder, heavy with the few things I grabbed. My laptop, my mother's jewelry, my passport. I'm also leaving with bruises that are just beginning to bloom, hidden under my cashmere sweater, a dark, ugly purple on my ribs, a handprint on my upper arm. He did not touch my face this time. He told me he was learning. He told me he loved me too much to let me be stupid. My phone vibrates in my coat pocket. It is a relentless, angry buzz against my hip. I stumble, catching myself on a wet brick wall, and pull it out. The screen is cracked, slick with rain. 23 missed calls. The number flashes again. Grant. I silence it, but the texts immediately follow, a wall of green bubbles. Maya, you owe me an apology. Get back here right now. We are not finished. I keep walking, my thumb shaking as I try to block his number. Then the last message freezes me. I know where you are. My blood turns to ice, but he cannot. He cannot. The single best moment of the last 3 hours, the only moment I felt I could breathe, was when I finally found the hidden tracking application he thought I did not know about. It was disguised as a battery optimizer, buried deep in the system files. I found it 3 weeks ago. I waited. Tonight, when he turned his back to pour another drink, the drink that always made him mean, I hit uninstall. The application vanished. I am invisible. I have to be. I cannot stay on the main streets. He will be in his car by now, a sleek black Range Rover, and he will drive the blocks. He always drives the blocks, a predator circling. I cut into the alley behind Wabash Avenue. The stench hits me immediately. Wet dumpsters and the sour smell of old grease from a restaurant vent. My shoes, thin canvas flats I bought for comfort at the store, are a joke. They are completely soaked through, the filthy alley water seeping into my socks. My feet are numb, just slabs of ice at the end of my legs. I am shivering, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that starts in my bones. It is not just the cold, it is the adrenaline drain, the sudden, terrifying emptiness of escape. I push a curtain of wet hair from my eyes and look up. Through the deluge, a light. It is weak, blurred by the storm, but it is steady. A neon sign, buzzing almost silently, flickering in the downpour. Sable and ash. Just those 2 words, glowing in a warm, deep amber. Through the rain-streaked windows, I see dark wood. It looks like a craft bar. It looks solid. It looks warm. I push the door. It is heavy, solid oak, and it opens without a sound. The difference is shocking. The warmth hits me first, a physical blanket of heat that smells of old wood, expensive bourbon, and something spicy, maybe cinnamon and cloves, and it is quiet. The roar of the storm is instantly muffled, replaced by the soft, scratchy sound of a vinyl jazz record, a saxophone crying low and slow. The bar is beautiful, all dark walnut and polished brass. The booths are upholstered in deep oxblood leather. It is maybe half full, but the patrons are speaking in low murmurs, their voices a gentle hum beneath the music. My eyes immediately land on a man sitting alone at the far end of the bar, his back to the wall, in the deepest shadow. He's sitting perfectly still, nursing a small glass of dark liquid. He does not look up when I enter. He does not need to. He seems to command the space around him. There is a pocket of silence, a vacuum that the bar's quiet energy seems to bend toward and avoid. I must look like something dragged in from the river. I am dripping a puddle onto the polished floorboards. I am shivering so hard my teeth are chattering. A rapid, humiliating click, click, click. I just stand there by the door, the weight of my escape suddenly crushing me. I do not know what the next move is. A bartender looks up from polishing a glass. He has a full head of salt and pepper hair, combed back neat, and the kind of tired, intelligent eyes that have seen everything twice. He does not sigh. He does not look annoyed at the puddle I am creating. He simply places the glass down, grabs a clean, white, folded bar towel from under the counter, and walks around. He holds it out to me. "You look like you ran through hell and back," he says. His voice is gravelly, low, but not unkind. "Go ahead." I just nod, my throat too tight to speak. I take the towel and press it to my face, scrubbing at the rain and the tears. I did not realize I was crying. "Thank you." He gestures with his chin toward an empty two-top table against the far brick wall. "Sit down. I will bring you something for that chill." His name tag, pinned to a clean black apron, just says Nico. A minute later, he sets a steaming glass mug in front of me. Cinnamon toddy, on the house. He pauses, his eyes lingering on me for a second, taking in the trembling. "Just sit. No one is rushing you here." I wrap my frozen hands around the mug. The glass is thick and hot, the heat an agonizingly good pain against my numb skin. I take a sip. It burns all the way down my throat, sweet and strong with whiskey, chasing the ice from my blood. I'm starting to feel my fingers again when the phone vibrates on the table. It is a vicious buzz, loud in the quiet room. I jump, slopping the hot liquid over my hand. Another text from Grant. I look at the screen, and all the warmth the toddy gave me vanishes. "Do not think you can leave me." Below it, a picture of my mother's house in the suburbs, taken today. He knows I would go there. A threat. My stomach twists into a tight, acid knot. I quickly flip the phone over, screen down, the black glass reflecting the dim amber lights. I cannot breathe. I am not safe. I am not safe anywhere. I look up, desperate, gasping for air, trying to anchor myself. The man at the end of the bar. He still has not looked at me directly, but I see him in the mirror behind the rows of expensive bottles. He catches Nico's eye. He gives a short, almost imperceptible nod. Nico, who is back behind the bar, nods back, just once. I look around the bar again, my paranoia spiking. Nobody is staring at the drowned rat in the corner. Nobody is whispering. In fact, everyone seems to be making a polite, deliberate effort not to look at me. It is the most respectful and the most unnerving silence I have ever experienced. A flash of lightning illuminates the entire street outside, turning the rain into a curtain of silver needles. It is followed an instant later by a crash of thunder so loud the heavy glass windows of the bar rattle in their frames. The bottles behind the bar clink together, as if summoned by the storm. The heavy front door swings open again. The wind howls in, bringing a spray of icy rain and dead leaves. A man steps inside. He's not the man from the bar. This one is different. He moves with a quiet, solid purpose that chills me more than the rain did. He's wearing a simple black suit, tailored so perfectly it moves with him like a second skin. But it is not flashy. It is functional. He stops, shaking the water from his shoulders, and scans the room. His eyes move over every face, assessing, cataloging, and then they land on me. He starts walking toward my table, not fast, not slow, just inevitable. My heart starts to pound, a heavy, sick rhythm against my bruised ribs. As he gets closer, I see details: dark hair, cut short, a strong jawline that looks like it was carved from stone. He stops at my table. I see his left hand resting on the back of the empty chair, under the cuff of his immaculate white shirt. Wrapping around his wrist is a pale, silver scar. It is puckered and old, not an accidental cut. "Luca Moretti," he says. It is not an introduction. It is a statement of fact. His voice, it is low, a deep rumble, with that distinct Italian-American edge you only hear in certain old neighborhoods of Chicago. It is a voice that does not need to be raised to be obeyed. "This is my place," he says. He glances at my flipped-over phone, then back at my face. His eyes are dark, analytical, and unsettlingly calm. He's not looking at me like Grant did, like I am a possession he needs to polish and display. He's looking at me like I am a complex problem he is deciding whether or not to solve. "You need a dry spot," he continues, his gaze unwavering. "Or do you need a plan?" He's not joking. He's not flirting. This is a transaction. My throat is tight. The air feels too thick to breathe. I should be terrified of this man. He radiates an intensity, a contained power that is far more dangerous than Grant's loud, pathetic rage. But I am not afraid. I am just tired. So incredibly tired. I look at him, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to sound like the bookstore manager I am, not the victim I just became. "I need an hour to breathe," I manage to say. My voice sounds thin and reedy, a child's voice. He watches me for a long second. The jazz music swells, a lonely trumpet cutting through the quiet. He reaches into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. My heart stutters. I flinch. He pauses, his hand still. He sees the flinch. His expression does not change, but something in his eyes darkens. He pulls his hand out slowly. He is holding a key. It is an old-fashioned brass key, heavy and solid, attached to a simple, worn leather fob. He places it gently on the table next to my half-empty toddy. "You have all night," Luca Moretti says. "Room 3, up the stairs at the back, the door at the end of the hall." I stare at the key. This is insane. I'm not going anywhere with this stranger. I do not take keys from strange men in dark bars, but then I look at my phone, dark and silent on the table. A tiny bomb waiting to explode with another picture, another threat. I look at the rain pounding the pavement outside, a solid wall of water. I look back at him. "Thank you," I whisper. He just nods. Once. A curt dismissal. Then he turns and walks back to the bar, not to the man who never looked up, but to a stool near him. He signals to Nico. I sit there for another 10 minutes, maybe 15. I finish the toddy, forcing the last of the hot liquid down, letting the heat spread to my limbs. Finally, I stand up. My legs are shaky. I grab my torn tote bag, my silent, dangerous phone, and the heavy brass key. I walk to the back of the bar, past the restrooms, to a narrow staircase I had not noticed before. The wood is polished, gleaming under a single dim bulb. I climb the stairs. The hallway above is silent, carpeted in a thick, dark runner, and smells faintly of lemon oil and old wood. Room 3. The door is solid. I slide the key into the lock. It turns with a heavy, satisfying clunk. I push the door open, and just before I step inside, from the corner of my eye, I see it. Mounted high on the wall, disguised against the dark, patterned wallpaper, a small, black security camera. The tiny red light is off, but the lens is aimed right at the hallway. It swivels, just a fraction of an inch. As I move, my blood runs cold again, but for an entirely different reason. I quickly step into the room and lock the door behind me, sliding the deadbolt home. This is not a normal bar, and Luca Moretti is not just a concerned citizen. The deadbolt slides home with a heavy, oiled click. For a second, I just lean against the solid wood, my eyes closed, my breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. The silence in the room is absolute, a thick, insulated quiet that the storm outside cannot penetrate. That camera, the image of it swiveling, the dark, assessing lens, is burned into my mind. This is not a hotel. This is not a bed and breakfast. This is a place with rules I do not understand, run by a man with silver scars and eyes that see too much. I finally turn and take in the room. It is simple, but the simplicity is expensive. There is a queen-sized bed dressed in heavy white linens that look impossibly clean. A dark walnut wardrobe stands against one wall. Next to a matching dresser, there is a small, upholstered armchair in the corner. No television, no telephone, just a room. It is immaculate, as clean as a hospital, but as warm as a study. It smells like the bar downstairs, of old wood and that faint, spicy scent. I walk over to the wardrobe and pull the handle. It is unlocked, inside. It is not empty. There are clothes, not a lost and found jumble, but a curated, basic inventory. A thick gray wool sweater, a pair of black sweatpants folded perfectly, a few new t-shirts still in their packaging. In the dresser, I find toiletries, all new, all sealed, a toothbrush, toothpaste, a bar of simple, unscented soap. It is both incredibly thoughtful and deeply impersonal. It is a kit for a person who has nowhere else to go. On the pillow of the bed, I see a single piece of thick, cream-colored cardstock. It is not a welcome note. It is an order. 4 words in clean, black type. Lock it from the inside, sleep. I drop my soaking wet tote bag onto the hardwood floor. I should be terrified. I ran from one cage, a pretty, glass-walled penthouse, only to lock myself inside another, a windowless room of wood and leather. Grant. The thought of him makes my stomach clench. It did not start this way. It never starts this way. 2 years ago, he walked into the bookstore on a Tuesday afternoon. It was quiet, just me and the dusty afternoon light hitting the biography section. He smiled, a perfect textbook smile that seemed to light up the whole room. He asked me for a copy of Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. He said he was trying to understand the world outside the spreadsheets. I thought he was sensitive. I thought I had finally met one of the good ones. He bought the book, then asked me for coffee. He said my explanation of the poetry section was the most passionate thing he had heard all week. Maya Hart, the quiet bookkeeper, the woman who lived her life in the margins of other people's stories. I blushed. The first few months were a blur of flowers delivered to the store, expensive wine at restaurants I'd only read about, and long talks where he seemed fascinated by my quiet life. He loved that I was grounded. He loved that I was not like the other women he knew. Then the suggestions began. They were small, reasonable intrusions. That friend of yours, Jenna, she seems a bit loud. Does she not? Maybe we could just have a quiet night in. So I saw Jenna less. You work so late, Maya. I worry about you on the train. Why do not you let me pick you up? So I started scheduling my shifts around his availability. My clothes were too modest or too plain. He bought me a new wardrobe, beautiful silk blouses and cashmere sweaters, like the one I am wearing now, the one hiding the proof of his love. I laughed it off. I told my concerned colleagues at the bookstore that he was just caring. He just worries about me, I remember saying, my voice bright and false. The room is warm. I realize I am still shivering. I should take off my wet shoes, my damp clothes, but I cannot seem to move. I walk to the small attached bathroom. It is spotless. All white tile and gleaming chrome. The towels stacked on the shelf are the thickest, softest towels I have ever touched. I catch my reflection in the mirror and flinch. My hair is plastered to my head in wet, dark strands. My face is pale, my eyes wide and dark with a fear that looks animal. My lipstick is gone, my lips pale and chapped. I look like a ghost. I touch the soft towel, a ridiculous, small comfort. My brain, grasping for anything to stop the panic, offers up a dry, shaky piece of humor. If this is a mafia safe house, at least the towels are incredibly soft. I sit on the edge of the bed, my wet shoes still on. The mattress is firm, supportive. I look at my phone, still in my hand. I had turned it off in the hallway. I know I should leave it off. I know he is tracking me. No, I stopped that. I uninstalled the application. But the realization that sent me running tonight bubbles up again, sour and hot in my throat. It was not just the tracker. Last week, I could not log into my email. The password had been changed. When I finally got through the recovery process, I found a new filter set up. Every email I received was being forwarded to an unknown address, his address, then the money. The small nest egg my mother had left me. The money I kept in a separate account for a day I might finally open my own tiny book cafe. I checked it this afternoon. Just a gut feeling. It was gone. Every single dollar. drained, transferred to an investment account in his name. For safekeeping, a text from him read, an hour later, I'm investing it for us, Maya. You are not good with money. I am the one who balances the entire bookstore's accounts to the penny. I am the one who finds discrepancies in publisher invoices. I am good with numbers. My talent, my specific skill, is remembering the details, the quiet observation and the details, for months, had been screaming at me. I just refused to listen. Chicago is a city of layers. There is the glittering downtown, the Loop, where Grant lives and works in his glass tower, a world of expensive steak dinners and political fundraisers. Then there are the neighborhoods, blocks with their own rules, their own histories, their own systems of power. Sable and Ash feels like it belongs to that other Chicago, the one that runs underneath the surface, powered by cash and loyalty, not credit and contracts. I think about the men downstairs, the bartender, Nico. He seemed to know what I needed before I did. The towel, the toddy. His eyes were kind, but they were not soft. They were the eyes of a gatekeeper. I remember asking him, my voice trembling, if the man at the end of the bar was the owner. Nico just polished a glass. He did not look up. That's Luca, he said, as if that explained everything. He paused, then added, his voice very low, he hates men who hurt women. It was not a comfort. It was a warning, a statement of fact about his boss. And Luca did not touch me. He did not offer pity. He offered a choice, a dry spot, or a plan. He offered a key. I saw the way the other patrons in the bar gave him space, that invisible border of respect and maybe fear. I saw the two large men standing by the staircase when I came up. They were not bouncers. They were sentinels. They wore dark suits, just like Luca, and they watched the room with a still, professional boredom that is far more threatening than any obvious muscle. They are part of the unwritten rules of this place. I am exhausted. The adrenaline is gone, leaving a heavy, leaden ache in my limbs. My bruised ribs throb with every breath. I look at the key in my hand. Room 3. I am in room 3. I have a key. I have a lock. For tonight, it is more than I had an hour ago. I lie back on the bed. Just for a second, the soft linens cradle me. I am still wearing my damp coat, my wet shoes. The half-empty mug of toddy I brought up from the bar is on the nightstand. I should drink it. I should change into the dry clothes. I should shower, but I cannot. My eyes slide closed. I am too tired to be properly afraid, too numb to process the camera in the hall. My last coherent thought is about my name. I used my real name, Maya. It was a mistake. It was a reflex. From now on, I have to be more careful. I have to hold something back. I decide, as sleep pulls me under, that if anyone asks, my name is just Maya. No last name. Maya. I will keep heart to myself. I fall asleep in the clean, silent room, my wet shoes still on, clutching a key to a door I am not sure I will be allowed to open in the morning. I woke up with a gasp, my body rigid, my heart pounding a frantic, heavy beat against my bruised ribs. The room was silent, not just quiet, but a deep, insulated silence, as if I were miles underground. For a second, I had no idea where I was. Then it came back. A flood of icy images, the rain, the alley, the man with the silver scar, the key, the camera. I was still fully dressed in my damp clothes. My canvas shoes were stiff with dried alley filth. The sun was not up yet, but a faint, gray light seeped under the heavy door, signaling morning. I had slept. I had actually slept. A heavy, dreamless sleep. For maybe 4 or 5 hours. The exhaustion was a physical weight, but the terror was still there, a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I had to leave. I had to return the key and get out into the world, figure out my next move. I pushed myself off the bed. Every muscle ached. I went into the spotless bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. I was a wreck. My hair was a tangled mat, my face pale and puffy. I used the new toothbrush, the harsh mint stinging my gums, and splashed cold water on my face until my skin was numb. I looked at the clean, folded clothes in the wardrobe, a part of me, the part that valued independence above all. recoiled. I did not want to owe these people anything. But my own clothes were cold, damp, and smelled of the alley. I stripped off my cashmere sweater and jeans, my wet socks and shoes, and quickly pulled on the black sweatpants and the thick gray wool sweater. They were soft, warm, and ridiculously large on me. They felt like a costume, but they were dry. I brushed my tangled hair with my fingers, pulling it back into a messy knot. I put my own filthy clothes into my tote bag, along with my laptop and the few other things I owned. I took the heavy brass key, unlocked the deadbolt, and stepped into the quiet hallway. The camera was still there, a dark, sleeping eye. It did not move. I walked down the polished wooden stairs, my socked feet making no sound. The bar was transformed. The warm, amber lights of the night were gone, replaced by the weak, gray light of a Chicago dawn filtering through the front windows. The room was empty of patrons. Nico, the bartender, was there, wearing the same clean black apron. He was wiping down the long walnut bar, his movements methodical and practiced. The air smelled of strong coffee and lemon oil. He looked up as I approached, his expression unreadable. I held out the key. "Thank you," I said, my voice hoarse. "For the room and the toddy." He took the key, his fingers brushing mine, and he was about to speak when a sound from the street made us both freeze. Bang, bang, bang. It was the sound of a fist hitting heavy glass. A man's voice, muffled but unmistakable, roared my name. "Maya, Maya, I know you're in there. Open this damn door." My blood turned to ice. I felt it drain from my face, leaving my skin cold and clammy. I could not move. I just stood there, paralyzed, a rabbit trapped in the headlights. Grant, he had found me. Nico did not look surprised. He just sighed, a quiet sound of annoyance, and placed the key behind the bar. "So, that is him." "Bang, bang, bang, ain't louder this time. Maya, let me in. You are acting crazy. People are worried." I crept toward the window, drawn by a morbid, terrified curiosity. There he was, Grant Whitaker in the flesh. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie undone, his usually perfect hair was wet and sticking up in frantic spikes. He looked unhinged, his face red and contorted with rage as he hammered on the locked door. A few early morning pedestrians, bundled in coats and scarves, hurried past, pointedly looking away, crossing the street to give him a wide berth. This was not the charming, successful man who bought poetry. This was the man who counted my savings as his. The old Maya would have run. She would have hidden in the bathroom, cried, and waited for someone to save her. But the woman standing in the borrowed gray sweater, the woman who had uninstalled a tracking application and walked 22 flights of stairs, was someone different. I turned away from the window, away from him. I looked directly at Nico, who was watching me, his gaze steady. I made my voice as calm as I could. "He's going to tell you I am mentally unstable," I said, the words coming out clear and cold. "He will say I am having a psychotic breakdown and that I am confused. He will say I need help." His help. Nico stopped wiping the bar. He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw something other than professional detachment. It was a flicker of deep, weary understanding. "We believe what you say here, Ginorido," he said, his voice a low rumble. Not him. "He seems persistent." The voice came from the back of the room. Luca Moretti emerged from a doorway I had not noticed last night, probably an office. He was dressed in a crisp white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing the pale, silver scar that wrapped around his left wrist. He was holding a small cup of espresso. He did not look at Grant. He looked only at me, his dark eyes analytical. "He did not find me," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I turned my phone off. He's just hitting every bar in the neighborhood, throwing a tantrum." The pounding on the glass started again, more frantic. "This is what he does." Luca took a slow sip of his espresso. He studied me over the rim of the cup. "You told me you needed an hour to breathe," he said. "You did not mention this." The anger, the fear, the humiliation of the last 2 years suddenly coalesced into a single, sharp point of clarity. I was done being managed. I was done being protected by half-truths. Last night, I ran, I said, my voice shaking but loud in the empty room. This morning, I am talking. And the facts spilled out. Not the tears, not the fear, just the facts. The bookstore manager in me took over, the part of me that dealt in ledgers and hard data. He put a tracking application on my phone. I uninstalled it last night. For the last 6 months, he has had a filter on my email, forwarding every message I send and receive to his own account. And yesterday, he transferred $5,420, my entire savings, from my account to his. Luca was silent for the entire speech. He did not move, did not offer a single word of sympathy. When I finished, my chest heaving, he set his espresso cup down on the bar. He asked the only question that mattered. Do you have proof? My heart did not leap. It settled. This, I knew. Yes, I said, I grabbed my tote bag, pulled out my laptop and my phone. I turned on the phone, ignoring the avalanche of notifications that immediately began to buzz. I logged into my bank's website on the laptop, my fingers flying over the keys. I turned the laptop around. My bank statement, the transfer, dated yesterday at 4:15 in the afternoon, to his account, his name. Then I pulled up my email on my phone. I went to the sent folder. And this. An email sent from my account to a city councilman, declining an invitation to a charity event. I told Grant I wanted to go to that event. He told me it was frivolous. I never wrote this email. He was impersonating me. Luca leaned in, studying the laptop screen. He picked up my phone, scrolling through the email, his expression hardening. He was pensive, his jaw tight. He looked at the bank statement again. He finally handed the phone back to me. He just nodded. Once. A short, sharp gesture. Then the pounding on the door stopped. The sudden silence was more alarming than the noise. I looked out the window. Grant was off the steps, pacing furiously on the sidewalk. He was on his phone, shouting into it, his face a mask of performative panic. He is calling the police, I whispered. The cold knot in my stomach was back. He is telling them I am his unstable girlfriend and I have been kidnapped. Luca did not even look out the window. He looked at me. He is telling them you are being held against your will. He gestured with his chin toward a door behind the bar, one I had not seen. There is a back way. You can be gone before they get here. We can make you disappear for a while. I looked at that door. The temptation was so strong it was a physical pull. To run, to hide, to just be invisible and let this nightmare end. But I thought of my mother's money. I thought of the email he sent, the dozens of tiny ways he had erased me. If I ran now, he would win. He would have the story. He would be the concerned boyfriend. I would be the crazy woman who vanished. I shook my head. I pulled my shoulders back, ignoring the sharp protest from my bruised ribs. No, I said, I'm not going anywhere. I am done running. I want to talk to the police. A flicker of something passed through Luca Moretti's eyes. It might have been surprise. It might have been respect. It was gone before I could name it. He simply nodded again. Nico, coffee, a pot, for all of us. Within 5 minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up. They did not use their sirens, just the flashing blue and red lights that painted the bar in silent, strobing bursts of color. Grant rushed toward them, his hands spread wide, the picture of a frantic, concerned partner. 2 officers, a man and a woman, got out of their cars and listened to him. He pointed dramatically at the door of sable and ash. The officers approached, their faces set in neutral, professional masks. Nico walked to the door and unlocked it. As the officers stepped inside, bringing the cold morning air with them, another person entered right behind them. It was a woman I'd never seen before. She moved with a speed and purpose that was electric. She was wearing a perfectly tailored gray pantsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a tight, severe bun. She carried a sleek, black leather briefcase. She walked directly to Luca, nodded once, and then turned to me all in one fluid motion. I am Ana Delgado, she said. Her voice was crisp, fast, and left no room for argument. I am Mr. Moretti's attorney. I am representing the interests of this establishment, and by extension, your interests for this immediate matter. Do you understand?" I was so stunned. I just nodded. The male officer addressed me, his hand resting on his utility belt. "Ma'am, my name is Officer Riley. We received a call from a Mr. Grant Whitaker. He is, concerned. He stated that you were in distress and being held here against your will." From the corner of my eye, I could see Grant peering through the glass, his face a perfect mask of worried love. It made me sick. Ana Delgado stepped forward, placing herself just slightly in front of me. "Officers, thank you for your prompt response. My client, Miss Hart, is here of her own free will. The gentleman outside, Mr. Whitaker, has been harassing her for some time. She came here last night seeking refuge." She turned her sharp gaze on me. "Maya, tell the officers, very briefly, what you told Mr. Moretti. Are you here by choice?" I found my voice. It came out stronger than I expected. "Yes, I'm here by choice. Mr. Whitaker and I are no longer in a relationship. He has been tracking my phone. He stole over $5,000 from my bank account yesterday. He is the one harassing me. I came here to get away from him." The female officer looked at my borrowed, oversized clothes. She looked at Grant, who was now trying to look pathetic. Then she looked back at me. "Male, do you wish to file a report against Mr. Whitaker?" Before I could form a word, Anna said, "We will be filing for a restraining order immediately. For now, a formal report of harassment would be appreciated. My client can provide bank statements and email records to substantiate her claim." Officer Riley nodded. He went back outside. We watched through the glass. We could not hear his words, but we saw Grant's face. His arms started waving. He was shouting, his mask of concern slipping to reveal the rage beneath. The officer was firm. He shook his head. He said something that made Grant stop moving. Then he pointed down the street. Grant's face turned a dark, mottled red. He locked eyes with me through the window. His expression was no longer one of love or concern. It was pure, unfiltered hatred. He stabbed a finger at me, a violent, ugly gesture. "You will regret this, Maya," he mouthed, the words clear. "You have no idea what you just did." He yanked his car door open, got in, and sped away, his tires screaming in protest on the wet pavement. The officers took my statement. Ana Delgado stood beside me, guiding me with quiet, precise questions. Just the facts, Maya, no emotion, the date of the transfer, the email address he forwarded to. She was brilliant, efficient, and as cold as the November air. The police were polite. They gave me a card with a report number. They promised to log the incident. Then they left. The bar was silent again, the flashing lights gone. It was just me, Luca, Anna, and Nico, in the gray morning light. Anna snapped her briefcase shut. "I will have the restraining order paperwork drafted and ready to file by this afternoon. We will need to get him served, which may be difficult." She looked at me, her gaze softening by a fraction of a degree. "He will escalate. Men like this, men with money and connections, they always do." "Thank you," I said, my voice trembling now that the danger had passed. Anna just nodded. "Mr. Moretti, I will be in touch." And she was gone. A whirl of quiet efficiency and expensive perfume. I was shaking, a full-body tremor I could not control, the delayed reaction to the adrenaline, the confrontation. I wrapped my arms around myself, the wool sweater a poor substitute for real warmth. Luca had been leaning against the bar the entire time, unmoving. He had not interfered, he had not spoken, he had just watched. He did not step closer to me now. He did not offer a comforting hand. He just spoke, his voice low in the quiet room. "You can stay. That room is yours until you tell me you feel safe." I looked at him. This strange, dangerous man who had a high-powered lawyer on call at 8 a.m. What? He pushed off the bar, walked to the front window and looked out at the empty, wet street where Grant had been. "I told you, I do not like men who hurt women." He turned back, his face half in shadow, his dark eyes unreadable. "But make no mistake, Maya, I am not a good man." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut, the silence stretched, the fear, the relief, the sheer blinding absurdity of my life. All of it bubbled up in my throat. A wild, hysterical noise escaped me. It was a laugh, a short, sharp bark of a laugh, completely out of place. I clapped my hand over my mouth, horrified at the sound. Luca just watched me. His head tilted slightly, a silent question in his eyes. I dropped my hand. My body was still trembling, but I met his gaze. My voice was shaky, but it was clear. "That is fine," I said. "I am not an easy woman to swallow." The strange, brittle tension that snapped in the air after my laugh did not break. It just settled. Luca Moretti looked at me for another long second, and I saw that flicker of surprise again. He did not smile. He simply gave a short nod, as if I had just clarified a point in a business negotiation. Then he turned and walked back to his office, leaving me alone in the vast, quiet bar with Nico, who was already meticulously wiping down the counter where the police officers had leaned. That was how my new life began. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, mutual assessment. I lived in room 3. The first few days were a blur of suspended time. I did not leave the building. I was a ghost in a warm, wood-paneled purgatory. Anna Delgado, true to her word, filed the restraining order, a process server, a grim-faced man who looked like he had been carved from granite, delivered it to Grant at his downtown office. The silence that followed was more unnerving than his shouting. Anna was my only link to the outside world. She would appear in the bar during the quiet afternoon hours, all business, and deliver reports in her crisp, fast monotone. "Grant Whitaker is not just an analyst," she told me on the second day, her eyes on her tablet as she drank an espresso. "He's a senior project finance specialist for the city's infrastructure fund. More importantly, his uncle is Councilman David Whitaker. The family has deep roots and significant political capital." This explained the confidence, the absolute terrifying certainty Grant had always possessed, the assumption that the rules of normal life did not apply to him. Then she gave me the real news. He has retained a private investigator, a man named Reeves, a former Chicago Police Department officer dishonorably discharged. He's known to be messy, but he is persistent. I could not just hide upstairs. I was a prisoner, but a willing one, and it was grating on my nerves. I was also running out of the small amount of cash I had grabbed. On the third day, I found Nico in the bar's empty dining room, setting tables for the evening. "I cannot pay for the room," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I do not have my job anymore, and my savings are—" I stopped. He knew about the savings. But I am good with numbers. Very good. I managed all the accounts, the inventory, the publisher orders, and the payroll for the bookstore. I can work. Nico stopped polishing a wine glass. He looked over my shoulder, toward the back office where Luca was meeting with 2 of his large, silent men. Luca must have seen him, because Nico just turned back to me and nodded. "The office is in the basement," he said. "Do not mess up my liquor count." And just like that, I had a job. My new office was a small, dry, windowless room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling racks of expensive bourbon, scotch, and crates of Italian wine. It smelled of dust, aging paper, and fortified spirits. A simple desk with a new laptop was set up in the corner. It was meticulous. Tedious work. I reconciled credit card receipts from the night before. I cross-referenced invoices from suppliers. I updated their inventory spreadsheet, and my brain, which had been spinning in a fog of fear and adrenaline for 72 hours, finally, blessedly clicked back into place. This I understood. Numbers, ledgers, things that had to balance. On my second day of work, I found a billing discrepancy from their primary vodka supplier, a consistent overcharge on bulk orders that had gone unnoticed for 6 months. I drafted a polite, firm email, attached the proof, and saved Luca nearly $800. Nico just grunted when I told him, but the next morning, a fresh pot of coffee was waiting for me on the desk. Luca kept his distance. He did not visit my basement office. He never spoke to me about my work, but he was always aware of me. He was a silent, unsettling presence. I would come up to the bar for a quick dinner, usually a bowl of the rich minestrone Nico made, and I would feel his eyes on me from his usual booth in the shadows. He would catch my gaze, then nod to Nico. A few minutes later, Nico would amble over. "Maya, it is 10 o'clock, he would say, his voice gruff. "The numbers will be there in the morning. Go upstairs and sleep." Luca was not protecting me. He was managing me, like an asset. He was ensuring his new inventory specialist was fed, watered, and rested. It was the most impersonal and the safest I had felt in 2 years. Ana Delgado returned a few days later, but not for a legal consultation. She found me in the basement, my eyes burning from staring at the screen. She was not wearing her pantsuit. She was dressed in black athletic leggings and a tank top. "Come with me," she said. It was not a request. She led me up several flights of stairs, past my hallway, to a large, empty room I had not known existed. The floor was covered in dark gray mats, and a heavy punching bag hung from a steel beam in the corner. "You told the police he put his hands on you," she said, her voice flat as she pulled her dark hair into a tight, severe bun. "Yes," I said, my voice small. "You cannot rely on Mr. Moretti," she said, "or on Nico, or on those 2 mountains he keeps by the door. You cannot rely on that piece of paper I filed. You rely on yourself." For an hour, she taught me. It was not a sport. It was brutal and efficient. She called it Krav Maga, a system built for pure survival. She taught me how to break a grip on my wrist, using my entire body weight as leverage. She taught me the 3 fastest ways to make a man double over, giving me the seconds I needed to run. "You are not learning to win a fight." She drilled into me, her voice sharp and cutting as she corrected my stance. "You are learning to earn your escape. The goal is always to get away. Nothing else." I practiced until my arms ached and my voice was raw from shouting fire instead of help. After a full week inside, I felt like I was suffocating. I had to get out. I needed to talk to Jenna, my friend and former boss at the bookstore. I had to warn her, to explain. I put on the oversized sweater, pulled the hood low, and told Nico I was going out for air. He looked like he was about to argue, but Luca's voice came from the back. "Let her go, but watch the door." I took a bus, my entire body thrumming with paranoia, my head on a swivel. I got off 2 blocks from the bookstore and walked. I saw him immediately, a man in a nondescript gray sedan parked across the street. He was slouched low, trying to look casual, but he was staring at the front door of the bookstore with a fixed, predatory intensity. He was holding a large paper coffee cup and taking pictures of everyone who went in or out. Reeves, the messy ex-cop. My blood ran cold. I did not go in. I kept my head down, walked past the shop, turned the corner, and pulled out my phone. I zoomed in on his car, the lens shaking. I got a clear shot of his license plate. I sent the picture to Anna with a simple message. "He is here, gray sedan." Her reply was instant. "Got it. Go back to the bar, now." When I pushed through the heavy oak door of sable and ash, Luca was waiting, not in his booth, but standing at the foot of the stairs, blocking my path. "Was it him?" he asked, his voice low. "The investigator." "Yes." He nodded, his jaw tight. "You do not go out alone again." A flash of my old, defiant anger, the anger Grant had tried so hard to extinguish, flared up. "You cannot tell me that," I snapped, my adrenaline still high from the encounter. "I am not your prisoner. I will go where I need to go." He took 1 step closer to me. He did not raise his voice. He did not have to. The sheer condensed power he radiated was enough to make the air crackle. "I am not Grant Whitaker," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, each word a piece of chipped ice. "I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. You want to stay here. You want to be safe. This is the rule. One of my men goes with you, or you do not go." I stared at him, my defiance crumbling into the cold realization that he was right. I was not playing by normal rules anymore. Anna met me that evening, her face grim. The license plate had been the key. "The car is registered to a private security firm, Apex Solutions," she said, her legal pad in her lap. Apex is owned and operated by Reeves. We looked at their primary contracts. Their biggest client, providing over 60% of their annual revenue, is the City of Chicago Civic Development Fund. Grant's fund, I whispered. No, Anna corrected. Councilman David Whitaker's fund, Grant's uncle. They are using city-funded resources, laundered through a private security firm, to stalk you. This was not just a jilted, abusive ex-boyfriend. This was a coordinated system, a network of money, political power, and plausible deniability, all being weaponized to crush me. They will try to discredit you, Anna said, her voice clinical. They will use the press. They will use bureaucratic loopholes. They will paint you as the unstable, vindictive woman. Grant is just a cog in his uncle's machine, and you, Maya, are a loose end he needs to tie up. That night, the bar was loud, the Friday night crowd oblivious. I was finishing my work in the basement when I heard a crash from upstairs, followed by shouting. I ran up the stairs. It was not a fight. It was an inspection. 4 men in dark suits, their faces smug, were flashing badges. City inspection, one of them announced to the room. Liquor commission, we are checking all licenses and inventory. Shut it down. Nico and Luca, who had been closing out registers, did not flinch. Luca simply crossed his arms. My license is on the wall. Gentlemen, my papers are in my office. We will be the judge of that, the lead inspector said, his eyes glittering. He was clearly looking for a fight. They tore the bar apart. They yanked bottles off shelves. They checked expiration dates on mixers. They went through Luca's office, pulling files. I watched from the stairs, my heart pounding in my throat. This was not random. This was Grant. This was his uncle, pulling strings, trying to hurt Luca for the crime of helping me. After a full hour, the inspectors were visibly furious. They had found nothing, not a single bottle unaccounted for, not one piece of paper out of order. Luca's operation was flawless. You are clean, the lead inspector spat, as if the word tasted like poison. This time, and the next time, Luca said, his voice soft and deadly. Get out of my bar. After they were gone, I walked down into the quiet bar. Nico was already restacking glasses, his movements calm. Luca was pouring himself a drink. He looked tired. That was not about the liquor, I said quietly. He took a long drink, his back to me. No, he said, setting the glass down. It was not. He turned. Grant Whitaker is a fly, but his uncle, the councilman, he is an old problem. He does not like people operating in his territory without his permission. I realized, with a sinking, cold dread, that I had not just run from Grant. I had run straight into the middle of a war that was much older and much bigger than me. The other shoe dropped the next day. I got an email from Jenna. It was frantic. Maya, what is going on? The owner got a package, a legal-looking file. It was full of documents from a doctor. It said you were being treated for severe paranoid delusions. It said you were a danger to yourself and your colleagues. Oh, God. Maya, he fired you. He said his insurance would not cover him. I am so sorry. What is happening? I could not breathe. He had faked medical records. He had manufactured a narrative. He had sent it to my job. I was not just a refugee. I was now officially unemployed and, according to a forged piece of paper, insane. I showed the email to Anna. Her face was granite. Oh, we go back to the police, she said. We did. We filed another report, this time for libel and falsified documents. The female officer from before looked sympathetic, but she shook her head. I am sorry, ma'am, she said gently, but this is a civil matter now. There is nothing we can do. That night, I could not sleep. The room felt too small, the walls too close. I found a stairwell I'd not seen before, a narrow steel staircase that led up. It opened onto the flat, tar paper roof of the building. The city was spread out before me, a glittering, wet constellation of lights, the sound of traffic, a distant roar. Luca was already there, leaning against the parapet, a lit cigarette in his hand. He did not seem surprised to see me. We stood in silence for a long time, the cold wind whipping my hair around my face. My mother, he said suddenly. his voice so low I almost missed it. She was a good woman, a kind woman. My father, he was a hard man. He thought protecting his family meant locking them away. He thought owning them was the same as keeping them safe. He took a long drag from his cigarette, the cherry glowing red in the dark. She hated it. She taught me that protection is not possession. She taught me that real strength gives people a choice. It does not take their choices away. He turned to look at me, his eyes reflecting the distant city lights. I try to remember that, but it is not always easy in this business. I looked at this complicated, dangerous man. He was right. He was not a good man, but he was trying to honor his mother. I listened to the rain beginning to hiss on the roof, and I saw the vast, gray area I was now living in, a world where nothing was as simple as clean or dirty, and everything was a choice. The police report I filed with Anna was a pebble dropped into a very dark, very deep lake. For 2 weeks, there were no ripples. Grant was silent. His lawyers had accepted the restraining order without a fight. The councilman's office issued no statements. Reeves, the ex-cop, vanished from the street outside the bookstore. Life at Sable and Ash settled into a strange, suspended rhythm. I worked in my basement office, making the ledgers balance, my world reduced to the smell of old wine and aging paper. I spent an hour every other day with Anna in the upstairs gym, my body learning the sharp, violent grammar of escape. I ate quiet dinners at the bar, served by Nico. I slept in room 3, locking the door every night. Luca remained a shadow, a presence I felt more than saw. He was always in his booth or his office, conducting his own business in low, indecipherable rumbles. He was keeping his word. I was safe, and I was suffocating. The ripple, when it finally came, was a tsunami. I was in the basement, finalizing the payroll, when my phone vibrated on the desk. It was not a call. It was a text message. Not from Grant. His number was still blocked. This was an unknown number. I stared at it, my blood turning to slush. It was a photograph. My friend, Jenna, my former boss from the bookstore. She was in a dark space, seated on a metal chair. Her hands were tied behind her. There was a wide silver strip of duct tape across her mouth. Her eyes were wide, white with pure, animal terror. My stomach evaporated. I could not breathe. A second message came through. Southport, Container Yard 42B, 9 o'clock tonight. Come alone. Bring the hard drive Whitaker left with you. Come alone, or your friend gets hurt. Reeves. I did not scream. I did not cry. The panic that had frozen me in Grant's apartment, the fear that had made me run, it was gone. In its place was a cold, high-voltage rage that was so clear, so sharp. It made the whole room come into focus. He had touched my friend. He had used Jenna, kind loud-mouthed Jenna, who was worried about me, as bait. He had crossed a line, and he was going to pay for it. I stood up, grabbing my phone. I did not run up the stairs. I walked. I walked past the 2 silent guards at the top of the stairs, past Nico, who was setting up the bar. I walked straight to the closed door of Luca's office, and I knocked. Once. He called for me to enter, and he was at his desk, a heavy piece of dark mahogany. He was not alone. Anna Delgado was in the chair opposite him, a stack of legal files between them. They both looked up, their conversation stopping mid-sentence. They saw my face. Anna, for the first time, looked alarmed. Maya, what is it? I did not speak. I just held out the phone. Luca took it from my hand. He looked at the picture of Jenna. He looked at the text message. He did not move. He did not curse. He just became incredibly, terribly still. The ambient warmth in the room seemed to drop by 20 degrees. He looked at Anna. She looked back. A silent, terrifying understanding passed between them. He was going to handle this. His way. Which meant blood. No. My voice cut through the silence. It was sharp, loud, and it surprised even me. Both of them looked at me. No, I said again, stepping forward. I do not want her hurt, but I do not want him dead. I do not want a war. I do not want you to handle this. Luca. I pointed a shaking finger at him. You told me you were not a good man. I told you I was not easy to swallow. You gave me a safe place, and now he is pulling you into this. But you will do this my way, not your way." Luca stared at me, his face carved from stone. "His way," he said, his voice a low growl, "is fast. My way," I shot back, "is permanent. I do not want him to be a martyr. I want him in a cage. I want his uncle in a cage. I want evidence. I want recordings. I want it all. I want to use his own arrogance against him. You said you owed me. You helped me do this my way." Ana Delgado was the first one to move. A slow, thin smile spread across her face. It was the most terrifying expression I had ever seen. "She is right," Ana said to Luca. "Your way ends in a federal investigation. Her way starts one, with the right target." She looked at me. "The hard drive. What hard drive?" And suddenly, I remembered. A box, a single dusty cardboard box labeled Grant's College Junk. He had left it at my old apartment when he insisted I move into his penthouse. In my panicked flight, I had not gone back to that apartment, but I had a key. No. Wait, I did not need to. I had moved that box into a small storage unit a year ago, the one I kept my mother's old furniture in. "I know what it is," I said, my mind racing. "It is an old external hard drive. I thought it was just his old papers." "Reeves' ex-Chicago Police Department," Ana said, her voice rapid fire, her legal mind already assembling the pieces. "He's dirty, but the feds hate dirty local cops more than they hate other things. Nico has a cousin in the federal building, an agent who owes him a favor, someone outside the councilman's reach." Luca looked at me. A long, analytical stare. He was assessing the new equation. Finally, he gave a single, curt nod. "Your plan, my resources." The next few hours were a blur. Luca made a single phone call. He spoke in low, rapid Italian, his voice calm, but the words were hard. Ana and I took a taxi, one of Luca's men driving. Silent and stony-faced to my storage unit. The box was in the back, just as I remembered. I found the hard drive. Back in my basement office. I plugged it into my laptop. It was password protected. I stared at the prompt. Enter password. I thought about Grant, his arrogance, his laziness, his obsession with his own glory days. He was not a complex man. I typed, Bears 1985. The drive clicked, word, and opened. It was not his college papers. It was everything. It was the real set of books, spreadsheets, bank transfers, offshore accounts. It was a detailed, meticulous record of the kickbacks from Apex Solutions. It showed the money laundering from the councilman's infrastructure fund. It even showed the $5,420 he had taken from me, logged under a file named MISC Expenses. He was not just stealing from me. He was stealing from his uncle. He was building his own nest egg, hiding his tracks from everyone. "Ana," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I have him. I have all of them." By 8 o'clock, the plan was set. Ana had met with the federal agent, a woman with tired eyes and a grim mouth. They had seen the hard drive. They were in... I was going to wear a wire, not just audio, a tiny, button-sized camera. Ana and Nico would be in a surveillance van half a mile away with the federal team. They would move in on my signal. "You have to make him talk," Ana instructed, her hands deftly fitting the wire, her touch cold and professional. "You have to get him to mention his uncle. You have to get Reeves to admit he is working for the councilman. The hard drive is the how. We need them to give us the why." I just nodded, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I looked in the mirror. I looked like myself, just Maya, in a dark sweater, but under the top button was the eye that would burn them all to the ground. The Southport container yard was a desolate maze of rusting steel, smelling of salt, diesel, and the cold, damp wind off the lake. The rain had started again, a thin, miserable drizzle. A single, harsh floodlight illuminated Yard 42 IE, casting long, monstrous shadows. I saw them. Jenna was exactly as she was in the picture, tied to a metal chair, her small body trembling. Reeves stood beside her, his face haggard. He held a large hunting knife, the blade resting lightly against Jenna's throat. "Just the drive, Maya," Reeves said. His voice shaky. Give me the drive and we let her go. Where is he? I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. I held the hard drive up for him to see. I'm not giving this to the hired help. I want to see the coward himself. Reeves flinched, but a new voice, oily and familiar, echoed from the darkness between the containers. You should have stayed gone, Maya. Grant stepped out into the light. He was a wreck. He was unshaven, his eyes wild and bloodshot, his expensive suit rumpled. The mask of the charming, successful professional was gone, burned away to reveal the raw, manic ego beneath. You really thought you could run from me. You thought that Dago bar owner could protect you. I had to keep him talking. I had to get him to confess. It was never about me, was it? Grant, it was about the money you were skimming from your own uncle. Grant's face twisted. It was never about the money. You stupid, ungrateful bitch, he screamed, his voice cracking. It was about respect. It was about what you owed me. I gave you everything. I saved you from your pathetic little bookstore life. And the hard drive, I asked, taking a step closer. Was that respect? Hiding your tracks, you were stealing from him. Grant, this whole thing, Reeves, Jenna. This is not about me. This is you, cleaning up your own mess before your uncle finds out. This hit a nerve. Grant laughed, a high, thin, hysterical sound. My uncle owns this city. He owns the police. He owns men like Reeves. We are untouchable. This hard drive means nothing. Reeves, who had been silent, suddenly stiffened. Grant, shut your mouth, then he hissed, his eyes darting nervously into the shadows. Just get the drive. I turned my attention to the ex-cop. I had to break him. He's lying to you. Reeves, I said, my voice clear and carrying in the damp air. He is recording this. Is he not? He is setting you up to take the fall. The councilman's office hired you directly. Did they not? You are the loose end, not me. Reeves looked at Grant, then back at me. He saw the truth. He saw the prison cell waiting for him. He had been a cop. He knew how this worked. Slowly, deliberately. He lowered the knife from Jenna's throat. He is right, Reeves said, his voice flat. The councilman's office hired me. I am just the contractor. I am done. Now, Anna's voice said, sharp and clear in the tiny earpiece I wore. Instantly, the yard was flooded with light. Floodlights from the tops of the containers snapped on, turning the night to day. A heavy black van screeched into the yard, its doors sliding open before it even stopped. Federal police! A voice roared over a megaphone. Drop your weapons, hands in the air. Grant did not freeze. He exploded. He saw his entire world ending in a flash of light. With a scream of pure rage, he lunged, not at Reeves, but at me. You ruined me. You ruined everything. He shoved me, hard, backward into the darkness of an open, rusty container. I stumbled, my feet catching on the uneven steel floor. He was on me, his face a mask of insane fury. He had a knife, not Reeves' knife, his own, a small, gleaming blade. He raised it. I did not think. Anna's training took over. It was muscle memory. As he lunged, I did not back away. I moved in. I blocked his knife hand, my forearm slamming against his, redirecting the blade past my body. I grabbed his wrist with my other hand, locked my grip, and twisted, dropping my full body weight, just like she had taught me. I heard a distinct, sickening snap. Grant screamed, a high-pitched sound of agony I had never heard before. The knife clattered to the steel floor. I used his momentum to shove him away from me, and he collapsed, clutching his broken arm, sobbing. I was breathing so hard it felt like I was inhaling fire. I looked up. Luca was there. He was standing just inside the container, a silent, dark silhouette against the chaos of the flashing blue and red lights. He had not been in the van. He had been in the shadows, waiting. He had a gun in his hand, a heavy black pistol, but it was pointed at the floor. He was standing exactly one body length away from me, a solid wall of quiet power. His eyes were not on Grant. They were locked on me. He was waiting. He was keeping his promise. I looked past him. Reeves was standing frozen, his hands high in the air. Jenna was still tied to the chair, crying silently. "Reeves," I shouted. my voice raw and unfamiliar. "Let her go!" Instantly, Reeves scrambled to cut the ropes on Jenna's chair. Nico ran from the shadows, wrapping Jenna in a heavy blanket and pulling her to safety. The federal agents swarmed Grant, cuffing him as he wept. Ana Delgado walked calmly into the center of the yard. She handed a pair of handcuffs to the lead agent. "You will want these for Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice crisp. "He is cooperating fully." Grant, seeing Luca, became hysterical. "Mafia," he shrieked, his voice bubbling with tears and rage. "It's him, he set me up. Look at him, he is Mafia, arrest him, arrest him." Ana held up the hard drive in a clear plastic evidence bag. "We have the drive, officers," she announced, her voice cutting through Grant's screams, and a full, high-definition audio and video recording of Mr. Whitaker confessing to kidnapping, extortion, and a conspiracy to defraud the city, directly implicating the councilman's office. The federal agents looked at Grant's pathetic, sobbing form, then at the hard drive, then at Luca. They hauled Grant to his feet and dragged him toward their car. They ignored his screams completely. It was over. The sirens faded as the cars pulled away. Jenna was in the back of an ambulance, being checked over by paramedics. Nico was with her. Ana was talking to the lead agent, her face grim. "He's gone," she said, tapping her phone. "The councilman, his security detail, pulled him from a fundraiser 10 minutes ago. He's already in the wind. The media will have this by morning." The adrenaline, the rage, the cold, clear focus. It all drained out of me at once, leaving me hollow. My legs gave out. I sank to my knees, then just sat down, hard. On the cold, wet steel floor of the container yard, the drizzle was turning back into a cold, steady rain. I started to shake. It was not a small tremble. It was a deep, uncontrollable, bone-rattling shudder. My body finally processing the terror it had held at bay. A shadow fell over me. I did not need to look up. "Luca." He said nothing. He simply took off his heavy, black wool overcoat, the one that probably cost more than my entire year's salary at the bookstore. It smelled of expensive wool, cold night air, and that faint, familiar scent of cinnamon. He draped it over my shoulders. It was incredibly warm. He did not touch me. He did not pat my shoulder. He did not tell me I was brave. He just stood beside me, a solid, silent presence, letting me shake, letting me breathe until I was ready to stand up on my own. I sat on the cold steel floor of the container yard for a long time, shaking so hard my teeth ached. Luca Moretti's heavy wool coat was a sanctuary, a solid, warm weight in the chaos. He just stood beside me, a silent guardian, until the last federal car pulled away and the rain had washed the yard clean of the flashing lights. Only when my shudders began to subside did he speak, his voice low in the new quiet. "You are cold. Let us go home." He did not offer his hand. He just turned and walked toward his own dark car. Trusting I would follow, I did. I wrapped his coat tighter around myself, stood on my own shaking legs, and left the container yard behind. The aftermath was exactly what Ana Delgado had predicted: swift, brutal, and public. The dam of silence broke. Grant Whitaker was charged with a spectacular list of felonies: kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, extortion, and multiple counts of wire fraud and embezzlement. The hard drive I had opened, the one he kept as a secret ledger, was the key. It implicated not only him but his entire network. Councilman David Whitaker, who had vanished from the fundraiser, was apprehended 3 days later trying to board a private flight to the Cayman Islands. He was facing a massive federal investigation into public corruption. The city's political machine went into overdrive, everyone trying to distance themselves from the scandal. And Reeves, the ex-cop, the messy private investigator, he did exactly what I predicted he would. He took the first plea deal the federal agents offered, agreeing to testify against both Grant and the councilman in exchange for a reduced sentence. I gave my testimony. It was not in a courtroom, not yet. It was in a quiet, sterile conference room with Ana at my side, talking to 2 federal agents and an assistant United States attorney. I just told the truth. I told them about the bookstore, the emails, the tracking application, the $5,420. I told them about the forged medical documents. I was calm. I was precise. I was the bookkeeper, presenting the facts. When it was over, I felt hollow. There was no victory, just a profound, empty exhaustion. Jenna recovered. She was terrified but unharmed. She quit the bookstore the day after the kidnapping. The owner, my old boss, sent me an email. It was long, rambling, and full of apologies. He said he never should have believed those documents. He said he was horrified by what Grant had done. He offered me my job back, my old title, even a raise. I read the email twice in the quiet of room 3. Then I typed a simple reply. I am glad Jenna is safe. I will not be returning. I hit send. I felt nothing. That part of my life was over. A book I had finished reading and placed back on the shelf. I was in limbo. I was still working in the basement office at Sable and Ash, still living in room 3. I was safe, but I was living in Luca's world, under his protection. I was grateful, but I was not free. He found me in the basement office late one night, about a week after my testimony. I was staring at a spreadsheet, tracing the deliveries of a new, expensive Japanese whiskey. You are not going to work in my basement forever, he said. It was not a question. I looked up. He was leaning against the stone wall, his arms crossed. No, I said, I am not. What did you want to do? He asked. Before him, the words came out of my mouth before I could think. A ghost of an old dream. I wanted a place of my own, a bookstore, a small one, with a cafe, a place where people could come late, after their shifts, read secondhand books, feel safe. He was silent for a moment. Okay, he said. Do it. I almost laughed. Just like that, Luca. I have no money. Grant took it all. The Federals have it locked in evidence. I have nothing. I have money, he said simply, as if stating the sky was blue. I felt a cold dread, the same feeling I had when Grant offered to invest my savings. I shook my head. Standing up from my desk, no, I'm not trading one owner for another. I will not be your pet project. I am not offering to be your owner, he said, his voice quiet, lacking its usual hard edge. I'm offering to be your investor, a silent one. You build it, you run it. It is yours. I looked at him. At this impossible, dangerous man. I saw his mother's words in his eyes, the lesson about protection not being possession. He was trying. Then we do this like a real investment, I said, my voice sharp, the bookkeeper taking over. Ana Delgado draws up the papers, a formal loan, with a repayment schedule and interest, the lease, the business license, the bank accounts, everything will be in my name, and my name only. And, I added, my finger raised, I hire my own independent auditor to review the books, once a quarter. He stared at me. The corner of his mouth twitched. The closest I had ever seen him come to a smile. You are a handful, Maya Hart. I told you I was not easy to swallow. I said, Anna will have the papers tomorrow, he replied. We called it Pontoon. It was a small, narrow space in Westtown, far from the polished glass of the Loop, far from the old-world territory of Sable and Ash. It had brick walls and old hardwood floors that creaked. For 2 months, I worked. I was not alone. Nico, on his days off, came and built bookshelves that were solid as rock. 2 of Luca's silent, large men, the ones who guarded his stairs, spent a weekend hauling plumbing fixtures and installing a heavy, commercial-grade espresso machine. They never spoke to me, just worked with a quiet, terrifying efficiency. I found myself directing them. The counter goes here. Please, we need more light by that shelf. They just nodded and did it. Pontoon opened on a rainy Tuesday in February. It was a bookstore and a cafe. We were open until 2 a.m. We served strong coffee, hot tea, and Nico's minestrone soup. We sold used paperbacks for a few dollars apiece. Our first customers were night shift nurses, cab drivers, and students from the nearby art college. It was quiet. It was warm. It was mine. But I did not live there. And I did not live at Sable and Ash. The day the lease was signed, I packed my few belongings from room 3. I found a tiny studio apartment, 400 square feet of old plaster and a rattling radiator, 10 blocks away from Pontoon. I rented it with the first small paycheck I drew from my new business. Luca did not understand. "It is not safe," he argued. The only time our voices had raised, "It is a third-floor walk-up with a bad lock." "I will get a new lock," I said, firm. "Luca, I have to turn my own key. I have to know I am free. I cannot live under your roof, not if I am going to stand on my own." He had stared at me for a long time, his jaw tight. He hated it, but he let me go. I was testing myself. I was checking every single day to see if I was truly free, or if I had just built a prettier cage. My new life found its rhythm. I ran Pontoon 6 days a week, but on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, I went back to Sable and Ash. Anna and I had started something in the upstairs gym, the one with the gray mats. We held a class. It was free. We called it Digital Security and Practical Defense. I taught the first half. I taught the women who came, women from shelters, women from the neighborhood, how to check their phones for tracking applications. I taught them how to lock down their email, how to spot financial abuse, how to document everything. Then Anna taught the second half. She taught them how to break a wrist grip, how to use their keys as a weapon, how to find their voice and scream fire. Nico always sat at the bottom of the stairs during the classes, a silent, protective guardian, ensuring no one interrupted. We were turning our scars into a roadmap for others. Luca came by Pontoon sometimes, late at night. After Sable and Ash was closed, he would sit at the small counter, and I would make him a cup of tea. He never drank coffee that late. We did not talk much, but one night, he looked around the quiet, sleeping bookstore at the mismatched chairs and the full shelves, and he nodded. "You did good, Maya." He was quiet for a long time, staring into his cup. "My life," he said suddenly, looking up at me. "The things I do, the family, the business. There are things you will not like, things you should not see." I stopped wiping down the espresso machine and looked at him. "I know," I said. "I'm not asking you to be a good man. Luca, I am just asking you to be an honest one. With me." He reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a single key. It was not heavy, and brass like the one to room 3. It was a simple, modern key on a plain steel ring. He slid it across the counter. "What is this?" "It is a house," he said. "A small cabin, up in Door County. It is quiet. It is on the lake." He pushed a folded piece of paper toward me. It was a copy of a deed. "It is in your name, not mine. The taxes are paid for the next 10 years. If my life ever becomes too much, or if you ever feel unsafe, for any reason, you go there. It is your way out. No one will find you." I stared at the key. He was not giving me a cage, and he was giving me an escape hatch, and he was giving me the one thing Grant had tried to steal a choice. The next weekend, I closed the shop early. I rented a car. I drove for 4 hours, north into Wisconsin. I found the cabin. It was small, made of dark wood, hidden in a stand of tall pine trees, looking out over the cold, gray water of Lake Michigan. I used the key. I walked inside. It was clean, simple, and furnished. There was a fireplace, a stack of wood, and canned food in the pantry. It was an anonymous, perfect sanctuary. I stood on the porch for a long time, breathing in the clean, cold air that smelled of pine and water. I could feel the tension of the last 6 months uncoiling from my spine. I could stay here. I could disappear. I could be safe forever. I stayed for 1 hour. Then I locked the door, got back in my rented car, and drove back to Chicago. I drove back to my tiny apartment, back to Pontoon. I knew I could run. And that was the only reason I knew I never had to again. That night, Luca came by the shop. Just as I was closing, the closed sign was in the window. I let him in. The rain was starting again. A gentle spring rain this time, tapping against the glass. I made him his tea. We sat in the 2 worn armchairs I had bought at a second-hand store. We listened to the rain. "I went to the cabin," I said. He just nodded. watching me. "It is beautiful. Thank you." "You did not stay," he said. "No, I came back." I looked at him, at this dangerous, complicated man who ran a mafia bar and gave women escape routes. "I do not need a prince, Luca," I said, my voice quiet but sure. "I am done being rescued. I do not need someone to slay my dragons. I need a partner, someone who knows I can fight my own battles, but who will stand with me while I do it." He looked at me for a long time, the silence stretching, filled only by the sound of the rain. A slow smile, the first real smile I had ever seen from him, touched his lips. It changed his entire face. "Deal," he said. 6 months. Time did not just pass, it settled. Pontoon. My impossible bookstore cafe became what I had dreamed it would be. It was no longer just a shop, it was an anchor. The late-night crowd, the nurses from the nearby hospital, the cab drivers, the students, they called it their safe harbor. We were open until 2 a.m, a bright, warm light on a dark street. We started a poetry night on Thursdays. It was small, just a few people reading their hearts out into a quiet, respectful room. With Anna's help, we also established a small fund, taking 10% of our coffee sales to help women leaving violent situations find new, safe housing. Pontoon was becoming a community. My life with Luca Moretti found its own strange, sustainable orbit. We did not sign a contract. There was no grand declaration. We did not move in together. I kept my tiny, 400-square-foot apartment with the rattling radiator. He kept his own life, the one that moved in the shadows of sable and ash. But we built a bridge. We wrote rules. They were simple. Rule 1. You must notify the other if you are about to do something that will bring trouble to their door. Rule 2. We had an emergency text message code, just a 3-digit number. If either of us sent it, the other dropped everything and came. No questions asked. It was a partnership built on autonomy, not possession. The world outside our bubble finished its convulsions. Grant Whitaker, my former tormentor, took a plea deal rather than face the evidence of the hard drive in open court. He was sentenced to 12 years in a state penitentiary for kidnapping and embezzlement. His uncle, Councilman David Whitaker, was not so lucky with the federals. He lost his seat, his power, and was facing a trial that promised to dismantle his entire political machine. And Reeves, the ex-cop, he'd cooperated fully. He avoided jail time. Anna told me he had opened a new, legitimate security consulting firm. One afternoon, I received an email from him. It was long, nearly half a page. It was a formal, awkward apology. He said he was ashamed of his actions. He said he was trying to do better. I stared at the message for a long time. I typed one sentence back, then teach your employees not to stalk women. I hit send. It was a hot, humid evening in August. A sudden summer thunderstorm had broken the heat, the rain coming down in warm, heavy sheets. I had just locked the front door of Pontoon. I was sitting on the top step under the small awning, just watching the streetlights glitter on the wet pavement. He was late. He was often late. I heard the low rumble of his car before I saw the headlights. He parked across the street and got out, walking through the rain, his black shirt sticking to his shoulders. He was not wearing a coat. As he stepped into the light of the awning, I saw it, a fresh, angry red scratch curving from his cheekbone down to his jaw. He sat down on the step next to me, wincing as he moved. He smelled like the rain and the ozone from the storm. "Negotiations," he said, his voice rough. "Another crew." They did not like the new boundaries. I did not ask for details. I did not need them. His world was his. Mine was mine. We met in the middle. I just nodded. "Stay here." I unlocked the shop, went to the small first aid kit I kept under the counter, and grabbed an antiseptic wipe and a small bandage. I came back and sat beside him. I said nothing. I just held them out. He took them, his large, rough hand surprisingly gentle. He cleaned the cut, hissing as the antiseptic stung. I watched him try to put the bandage on, his fingers fumbling with the angle. I sighed, took it from him, and gently pressed it onto his face. He flinched, but he let me. We just sat there, two partners, one who sold books and one who negotiated boundaries, watching the summer rain. "Do you ever think about family?" I asked, my voice quiet, almost lost in the sound of the storm. He was still for a moment. "Sometimes," he said. "My mother always wanted grandchildren." I looked down at my hands. "I'm not sure I ever want to have children. After Grant, after feeling so trapped, I'm not sure I could ever give up that much of myself." I waited for him to argue, to tell me it was my duty, to say what other men had said. He just looked out at the rain. "So do not," he said simply. "Or do. Want them. Or do not want them. It does not matter to me, Maya, as long as it is your choice. 100% your choice." I reached into my pocket. I had been carrying it for a week. It was a new key, the copper shining, a copy of the key to the Door County cabin, the escape hatch he had given me. I held it out to him. He looked at the key, then at my face, confused. "This is yours," he said. "I know," I replied. "This is my copy, for you, but it comes with a rule." I waited until he met my eyes. "If I ever run there, if I ever panic and I go, you can follow me, but you knock. You do not break down the door. You do not pick the lock. You knock, and you wait for me to let you in. Promise me." He looked at the key, then back at me. He understood. It was not just a key. It was a statement of trust, but a trust with boundaries. He took it from my palm. "I promise. Maya, I knock." We started the scholarship fund the next month. We called it the Ash and Light Fund, a name born from sable and ash and pontoon. It was a small fund designed to help women leaving abusive relationships get the education or job training they needed to start over. Anna managed the legal side. I managed the books, and true to my word, I published every single donation and every single dollar spent, anonymously, on the Pontoon website. Our finances were public. Then, on a quiet Tuesday, the package arrived. It was a simple brown paper parcel addressed to me at Pontoon. There was no return address. I opened it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a book. A very old, leather-bound copy of Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. The same book Grant had used to lure me in, all that time ago. My heart froze. I thought it was a threat, a sick joke from one of Grant's remaining friends. I almost threw it away. But then I opened the cover. Inside, on the first blank page, was a handwritten inscription. The ink was faded, the handwriting a beautiful, strong, feminine cursive. It was not for me. It was for Luca, my dearest son, it read. "You learned how to protect from me, but this one, she will teach you how to respect. Do not let her go." It was signed Elena Moretti, Luca's mother. I had seen her handwriting once before, on an old framed letter he kept in his office at Sable and Ash. It was a perfect match. I sank onto a stool, the heavy book in my lap. She'd been dead for 3 years. How could she have... I looked at the postmark on the package. It was local. It had been mailed 2 days ago. I picked up my phone. I called Nico. He picked up on the second ring. "Sable and Ash." "Nico," I said, my voice shaking. I just got a book from Elena." The line was silent for a long time. I heard him sigh, a deep, heavy sound. "Ah," he said, his gravelly voice suddenly soft. "So it is the right time." "What are you talking about?" "His mother," Nico said. "She knew she was sick. At the end, she made Luca tell her everything, about his life, about his fears. She worried he would become his father, all iron and locks. He told her about you, in the hospital. He told her about the woman in room 3 who faced down her abuser, who demanded proof, who refused to run. He told her about the woman who wanted to build her own safe house. I was crying, silent tears dropping onto the dusty floor of my shop. "She loved you, Maya, without ever meeting you," Nico said. "She made me promise. She left that book with me. She said, when he finally figures out that he needs a partner, not a project, when he finally gives her the space to choose him, give her this. so she knows who he came from. I hung up the phone. I held the book to my chest. He'd been telling his mother about me. He'd been learning. He'd been trying. I stood up and locked the front door of Pontoon. The summer rain was still tapping against the glass. I walked behind my small counter. I did not make tea. I pulled out the bottle of good whiskey I kept for special occasions. I made myself a hot toddy, the scent of cinnamon and lemon filling the air. I looked out the window at my street, at my safe harbor. I was safe, but I was not locked in. I was not owned. I was safe because I had built the walls. I was safe because I held all the keys. And I was safe because I had chosen, finally, to let someone stand beside me. I raised my glass to the rain, and I smiled. Thank you for listening to this story. We would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our channel, Mafia Boss Stories. Like this video, and give us a boost by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.